Joe Biden is running for president. He has pretty much gone through, I believe it's his first week of essentially being a candidate. And he, I think for the most part, has had a decent, I would say actually probably a pretty favorable start so far, especially when it comes to media coverage of him. The media coverage is just, typically fawning as always. That never really changes, as is the case with, with most establishment candidates. He, however, at least behind closed doors, has been doing a lot of interesting activities. So let's get to one of those things that he's been doing. So following his latest launch for president, he immediately went and did a fundraiser with corporate lobbyists and GOP donors, which is very interesting. And he obviously didn't he obviously didn't put it out there for everybody to know. But, people out there obviously did their investigative reporting and found those things out. And one of those reporters is Lee Fang. He writes for The Intercept. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say his last name. But he is a great reporter, a great journalist. And he uncovered some interesting information about how he is actually doing or did a fundraiser with one of the executives from Comcast, which is the parent company of MSNBC. And they have been for many years now. And they, obviously during the 2016 elections, the primaries and whatnot, they gave a lot of favorable coverage to Hillary Clinton. They gave, or have given, obviously, Donald Trump a lot of unfavorable coverage. They have been very biased in favor of, the establishment. They've been pushing a lot of the Russiagate narrative. They've been pushing I would say a decent amount of anti-burning coverage, depending on which show you watch. If you watch somebody like, Joy-Ann Reid or something like that, yeah, for sure you're going to get a lot of anti-Bernie coverage. A lot of the guests certainly have been going on and bashing Bernie. So naturally, it makes sense for them to be on Team Biden now. And with their presence being felt on Team Biden, they're obviously going to have executives who are going to go out there and say that they're going to be in favor of somebody like Joe Biden. And so I'm just going to read a little bit of this article from The Intercept by Lee Fang. He talks about how, this is the beginning of the article. He says, over the last few months, David Cohen, a Comcast executive who oversees the telecom giant's lobbying operation, has cut big checks to Republican candidates while pushing to advance his company's regulatory agenda. On Thursday afternoon, however, Cohen will open his Philadelphia home to host Joe Biden, helping the Democratic former Vice President kick off his bid for the White House. Biden, who announced his bid for the Democratic presidential nomination Thursday morning, has depicted himself as the party's standard bearer, but he's planning to roll out his campaign at an event filled with others like Cohen, namely GOP donors and corporate lobbyists. I don't know where the part about him being an MSNBC executive. I'm sorry, a Comcast executive. Did I do that? Yeah, David Cohen. So he's a Comcast executive. So and one thing I should note here that is really, really important is Comcast, they have consistently been on on the other side of net neutrality. So they have actually lobbied against net neutrality. And they have said that they have been in clear opposition to it. And how convenient is it that one of the people that is going, in favor, kind of coming out in favor of Joe Biden, or at least in this case, certainly one of the top candidates in Joe Biden. Not just, he's not going up, he's not, backing Buttigieg, or he's not backing Beto O'Rourke or, Kamala Harris. He's going after one of the, as Fong's article mentioned, one of the standard bearers. And so it's very convenient that that's happening. And net neutrality is a big deal for leftists in this country, for free speech advocates, for people that are, even Barack Obama, when he was president, was pushing for net neutrality. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that if there is a Comcast executive coming out and fundraising for Biden, he's going to be pushing ideas that are going to be, essentially going against net neutrality, going against raising taxes on the rich, not, obviously taking money out of politics, the usual. That stuff is expected. But the net neutrality one is big. And I guarantee you Biden is going to come out at some point and be like, net neutrality is not that big of a deal. Don't worry about it. It's okay it's okay to not give certain websites and certain let's say news outlets and stuff, don't give them as much opportunity to play on the same playing field as everybody else. So I definitely wouldn't be surprised if that happened. So don't be surprised if that happens. And the kind of the telecommunication industry, which includes Comcast, it includes Viacom, it includes, I believe, News Corp as well. Well, their parent company is 20th Century Fox, so Fox essentially. Those kind of companies will definitely be coming out in favor of certain candidates and many Democrats too. So here's to that point, here's another line from the beginning of Fong's article. He says, like other Democratic candidates, Biden is launching his presidential bid with a pledge to reject federal lobbyist cash. But the lobbyists attending his Thursday fundraiser are either unregistered or registered with state entities, not the federal system. See how convenient that is? So they're skirting those kind of regulations, or in this case, not regulations, but they're kind of skirting those standards and saying, oh no, we're not taking any lobbyist money. But those just happen to be the lobbyists that are not registered under the federal system. They're unregistered, and if they are registered, they're registered with the state. So I guess they would probably be, within that certain state. In this case, I guess, Pennsylvania. I think that's where Comcast headquarters is. So, so they, that stuff is going to be disclosed. But when it comes to, certain candidates taking that money, that's how they're going to rationalize it. Fong continues by saying, as The Intercept previously reported, Democratic contenders Beto O'Rourke, Kamala Harris, and Cory Booker have all leveraged the same loophole to collect cash from corporate interests while pledging to eschew funding from federal lobbyists. So, it's very, very convenient how they're not trying to get the federal lobbyists, and they're specifically avoiding those because they want to act like that, because that's going to be a little bit more well known. It's going to be a little bit more public if it's the federal lobbyists. But if it's the private lobbyists, that people aren't going to focus on that much. The media certainly isn't going to cover it as much either. Not that they really give a shit about, lobbying and kind of corporate bought, politicians basically. So, it's very, very, but it's very, very interesting to see that. And, we talked about Joe Biden, obviously, last week, following his declaring that he's going to run and everything. And, his record, ever since I did the show, and ever since he declared he's, running for president, I've seen a lot of people posting videos of how he's said, made all these ridiculous statements over the years. Walker Bragman, who's one of my followers and somebody I follow on Twitter, he posts a lot of good clips. He's just one of many, but there was this other account. I forgot the exact the handle of the account, but they were posting, both of those accounts were posting a lot of interesting videos from Joe Biden from I think the 90s and 2000s and stuff. There's the kind of this famous video where he says, I have no sympathy or something for millennials, so the people that are dealing with so people in my generation who have been dealing with, and many are still dealing with, student loan debt. He says he has no sympathy for them. Don't come crying to me. Basically, I have nothing to say to you. You're just gonna have to deal with it. Like Biden's mentality when it comes to addressing specific issues, especially the issues that you would think people would care about. I mean, the guy just doesn't give a shit. And he likes to talk like tough and, act like he's some sort of straight shooting, politician, acting like he's Trump or something. And in many ways he is like Trump, but obviously in a bad way because Trump's already horrible. But, he likes to be like that. And then, but he does that and he masks, he kind of uses that as like a curveball for people to act like he's some sort of, straight shooting, say it how it is kind of politician. But in reality, he's just a bullshitter and he's an opportunist, and a lot of the things he's going to say is going to be acting like he's straight shooting, but he's really going to be catering to the elite and to the, in this case, private lobbyists and big donors and stuff. He, like we mentioned on our last episode, he did outraise Bernie Sanders. He did outraise Beto O'Rourke, but I guarantee you, based on the number of donations that he got, which was I think under 100,000, somewhere around 100,000 or so, because the figures seem to be, they seem to be kind of, there's different different stories coming out about what his official number was. I heard the official number to be 96,000, but then one of his people came out and said no, it's 107,000 because of donations online. So the numbers just don't make sense. And I posted about this. This was Simone Sanders, who's I believe his press secretary or something, working for him now, kind of his spokesperson basically, and she posted about that, and just the numbers just didn't make any sense. So I mean, I don't know if you saw that on Twitter or not, her posting about that on her Twitter, tweeting about it. But yeah, I responded. I was like, this just doesn't make any sense. These figures are completely inconsistent with what the initial findings came out as far as what the news reports and stuff said. Anyway, so but based on the fact that he got the number of donors basically that he got, I mean, it's obvious that he just got a bunch of money from really big donors, people that were giving him money in the kind of so $2,700, which is the max you're allowed to give. He definitely did that for sure. And so there's a lot of people that definitely maxed out their donations, whereas, majority of Bernie's donors, they all give under $200. So $200, which is, as we pointed out last week, going over $200, that's when you are getting into the kind of the bracket of, bigger donations compared to being under $200, which is considered a small donation. So majority of Bernie's donors are definitely small donors, and much more than a majority. I mean, I would say most of the candidates, certainly the ones that have a bigger amount of money, were raised a much bigger amount of money. They probably have majority of their donors being small donors, but you also have to consider how much money came from bigger donors. So the amount of money that came from bigger donors compared to the number of donors that gave money, under, for example, under $200 compared to, so if you're a millionaire and you're going to be giving $2,700, millionaire or billionaire, you're going to give a candidate $2,700 an hour. You are going to also recruit, and I think they did this. I think Beto O'Rourke also did this. That millionaire or billionaire is going to recruit a bunch of his family members, and he's going to recruit a bunch of his cousins and friends and fellow lobbyist buddies to also give more than $2,700. Give $2,700 per donation. So it's going to be all that money is going to to pile up. So the more people that can give that, the better it is, and for that person. And that's you don't need as many donors. You just need more. You just need more money from those specific donors. So it's really interesting how these candidates try to pretend like they're grassroots and pretend like they're like they're doing kind of everything in the same way that Bernie Sanders does it, or Tulsi Gabbard does it, or Mike Gravel does it. They're not. Those three that I just mentioned are the people that are actually raising money from small donors and are doing it. They're proudly doing it. And they're happy to put their numbers out there. They're happy to show that to everybody. And while people, like Biden, Booker, O'Rourke, Harris, Buttigieg, who if we have time, we're going to be able to talk about how he's also raising money. Pete Buttigieg is raising money from DC lobbyists now, which is crazy. But so when it comes to Biden, though, he's just, I just don't trust that guy. And there's nothing that he, unless he's going to just like all of a sudden like, stave off like all these big money donors and like completely change his rhetoric, there's no way any progressive is going to vote for him. Now, when it comes to voting for Trump, voting for Biden, if he ends up facing Trump in the primary, that's also another question. But majority of people on the left will do that just because they don't want Trump. But at the same time, you definitely cannot rely on that. That's for damn sure. So, I wouldn't even, at this point, if you were to ask me right now, would I vote for Biden? Would I vote for Biden over Trump? I wouldn't. I can't tell you that right now. And like I said, if his rhetoric changes and, he can actually say something that's believable, then maybe. But even then, it's going to be a stretch. So I thought that was a pretty interesting article. I'm not going to go through all of it, but it basically just details a lot of the lobbyists that have been, that have been kind of raising money for Biden. Apparently, it's one of them. They were former lobbyists for. It says Biden's has long since been close to lobbyists. He's coordinated his former chief of staff. So he's being coordinated by his former chief of staff, who's also his former chief of staff who's managing kind of the money he takes in and stuff from lobbyists. That guy is also a former a former lobbyist, no longer a lobbyist. But that guy's also, he's trying to help Biden get ahead in the money game essentially here. So it says the Biden for President Host Committee includes Kenneth Jareen, a lobbyist with Ballard Spahr, who is registered to work on behalf of toll road operator Conduent and several healthcare interests. Jareen, or Jaron, however you say his name, is a major donor to both parties and has given to political action committees controlled by former Republican House Speakers Paul Ryan and John Boehner. See, that makes no sense. How the hell are you a Democrat if you're taking money from the donors who have given to the Republican Party? So all these people that like smear Bernie Sanders as being like, oh, well, he's not a real Democrat and he's catering to the Republicans and he's catering to Fox News or whatever, even though a lot of other candidates go on Fox News too. At the same time, these lobbyists are giving money to these Democrats and nobody says anything. Why? Because the media doesn't cover the fact that Republican lobbyists give money to Democrats. And Democrats probably give, I'm sure, I don't know if it's a big chunk of them, but I don't know if like Warren Buffett or Bill Gates gives them money because those people are big Democratic donors. I don't know if they give money to Republicans, but this is just in the case of lobbyists. But yeah, but at the same, it's amazing how desperate these Democrats are to getting money from these corporate donors and these rich donors and stuff. They'll go as far as taking money from anybody because they just want that money so bad. They want money in their coffers that badly, and yeah, it's ridiculous. I don't know how they get away with it. Well, obviously they do it because of the media, but I don't know how they do it morally. Don't go out there and call yourself a Democrat and then pretend, pretend like you're in favor of all these Democratic policies while taking money from GOP donors who are going to make you push for Republican type conservative policies. So obviously you got your hand caught in the cookie jar, and you're acting like you're not doing anything wrong while you have crumbs on your lips. It's all there, and we're not stupid. We can see this stuff. It takes simple research. Obviously, we wouldn't be able to, find that kind of research. Be able to do that kind of research if we didn't have reporters like Lee Fong posting these great articles. But when you know which media outlets to cover, which media outlets to follow and which ones to kind of depend on and rely on. I mean, it's when you do that, you're able to stay on top of this shit. So all of you people out there, and I'm sure a lot of you aren't. I'm sure a lot of the people that watch me aren't watching CNN and MSNBC. But if you're following outlets like The Intercept, you're following outlets like The Nation. The Nation is very good. You're following. I know a couple of other ones are like the Progressive, Jacobin, Counterpunch. A lot of these great outlets, they are a big help to progressives, and obviously watching guys like Kyle Kulinski, watching Humanist Report, TYT to some extent is still pretty decent with Cenk and Anna, and obviously Jimmy Dore is great, Tim Black, all these people. So you guys keep watching people like me, keep watching people like all those people. I am happy to give a shout out to them, and I hope to be good. I hope to be big enough I hope my show to be big enough to get a shout out from them one day. And I'm proud to be in the same kind of in the same line of business, I guess you could call it, as those people, and they're awesome. And it's luckily we got outlets like all of these to document all of this corruption that's going on, all of this bribery and stuff, legalized bribery to go on.